Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 18th of November. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning for the first time this week by Blair Malloy. How goes it, Blair?
Morning, all. Morning, Derek. Yeah, it's becoming a little bit of a regular occurrence, me on a Tuesday podcast. This is slightly becoming my slot, which I'm quite enjoying. Just following on from the weekend after all the big discussions had on a Monday, we get to get into the minutiae of Rangers a little bit more. It's obviously a very big day for Scotland. I know people a little bit split of opinion on the national team, but playing Denmark tonight for that place at the World Cup. So I think no matter how you feel about the national team, there definitely seems to be a little bit of excitement building in the air. The fact that Scotland could be off to their first World Cup since 1998. I know I was only 3 at that time, so not one in living memory, and one that I can really remember. For me, I was certainly alive at the time, but they don't really recall it. So I think everybody of my vintage is certainly excited about the prospect of getting to go have a party next summer.
Well, yeah, good luck with that, because it costs an absolute fortune for tickets over there. So if Scotland do make it, it's going to cost you a bomb, folks. I do like going to World Cups. Incidentally, the last one I went to was Russia, which was fantastic, I've got to say. But I never went to Qatar. Was hoping to go to Mexico, America, and Canada, but I've seen the ticket prices, and I think I'll be sacking that one off. But yep, Scotland in action tonight, of course, against Denmark. A winner takes all affair at Hampden. I was old enough to watch them in that last World Cup, incidentally, back in '98. And Morocco, absolutely disastrous. It was. Less said about that, the better. Brazil, all remember about that game. The opening game was Tom Boyd's own goal. And then Scotland, of course, drew with Norway, who themselves have qualified for the first World Cup in 28 years. So they will be at the tournament. And 1-0 against Norway, and then 3-0 against Morocco. It was a shambles in that game. But hopefully they can do the biz tonight. I'm right in thinking if they don't do the biz, Blair, they get a playoff, isn't it? And they can face a number of countries in that.
Yeah, still guaranteed a playoff place at least. In typical Scotland fashion, they looked as though they had absolutely chipped it against Greece, and then the boys from
Yeah.
Belarus came to the rescue, getting that unlikely draw against Denmark. So yeah, they are at least guaranteed a playoff place, even if they don't win tonight. But it certainly does feel like all the momentum is with Scotland right now. Denmark, they should have seen it over the line. They should have got there. With all due respect to Belarus, they should have done the business the other night and got that sealed up. But Scotland have somehow found themselves still in it, and you might just be the proverbial name on the trophy or name on the World Cup draw, as it were. It just seems to be written in the stars that they might make it. So let's hope for all the Scottish contingent, and of course the Scottish players in the Rangers squad: John Souttar, Liam Kelly, and who knows, maybe another couple by the time we get there. If we get there, that is, going out there and playing their football, as well as all the other players that are on international duty for Rangers. I'll have a piece up on the site tomorrow talking about how all the Rangers players have done over this particular international break. We'll come on, we'll speak a little bit about Oliver Antman later on, a little bit about Nico Raskin, but Telo Asgard, as you said there, Norway qualified for their first World Cup since '98, so Telo Asgard will be alongside Erling Haaland over there in America next year.
Yeah, I actually watched some of their goals against Italy, 1-4-1 over there. The Italians are really struggling at the moment, of course, under former Ranger Rino Gattuso and the little-known Luigi Riccio, who I think played one game for Rangers as well. He's an assistant at Italy, but they have a playoff as well to negotiate, but they're not in great shape, the Italians. But well done to Norway, and of course, Scotland tonight. There's a lot of expectation in the air, but I was told very early on that Scotland will always let you down. It's always glorious failure. So let's see if they can get over the line tonight. Right, let's crack on, because people are tuning in because they want to talk Rangers, of course. That's why we're here. Before we do that, quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the great guys at the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust, proud partners of the Rangers Review. If you're looking for a new fence, folks, these are the guys to call. Got over 20 years of experience in the fencing trade, and you get 10% off if you use the code Rangers Review over on their website, which is willows-fencing.com. Right, let's get to it. A story we had on the website, and of course, you'll have noticed folks. Earlier on, a few weeks ago, we reported that Rangers, well, just last week, wasn't it? I've lost it the track of time, that Rangers were looking for a set-piece coach. And we had the piece on the website yesterday from Joshua that set-piece coach has been identified, and it is the Lincoln City coach Scott Fry, who is set to join Danny Rule's coaching staff. And many eagle-eyed supporters will have seen he does have that previous working relationship with Kevin Thelwell at Wolves. However, that being said, I think he's going by the work that he's done at the Imps. He's done a pretty decent job at Lincoln City. I get it's English League One, although they are flying high. I think they're second at the moment in League One at this point in time. But yes, Scott Fry is set to join the coaching staff. Your thoughts on that, Blair?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there, Derek, covering most of the bases about that. We'll take them individually. First off, a big shout out to Joshua for that exclusive on the Rangers Review website yesterday, identifying that it will be, or set to be, Scott Fry anyway, who'll be coming in as the set piece coach at Rangers. And myself and Joshua recorded a podcast on the weekend. On Sunday, we did a sort of tactical deep dive about free kicks, about set pieces, about why they're so important, and about why set piece coaches are so important. So, without rehashing too much old ground, if I just go back to it slightly, why do Rangers want a set piece coach? Well, if we take a little look at the numbers, last season Rangers scored the joint fewest set piece goals. Now they were joint bottom of that table alongside Celtic, which is maybe a little bit surprising for some people, but ourselves and Celtic only scored 8 set piece goals in the Scottish Premiership last year, which is it was really poor when you consider the resources that Rangers have. When you consider that the top set piece scorers last season were Hibs with 18, that's almost double the amount that Rangers managed to score last season. So clearly there's a little bit of a problem there. There's a little bit of a disconnect, and why Rangers aren't scoring that many goals, or as many goals as they should be, from set pieces. If you look at the last few years, if you go back to the 2021-22 season, that was when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was in. Roy Mackay was in there. He was sort of in charge of free kicks and set pieces at that time. Rangers scored 17 goals that season from set pieces. You move it on to the next year. That was Michael Beale and Harry Watling. Now, Harry Watling has just recently got that big move to the Premier League, and he famously came out with a quote at that time saying that it's a quote that he admitted that he'd stolen. But he said that set pieces should be your top goal scorer because it's one of the more controllable aspects of the game. Your centre forward could get injured, all sorts of things could happen. But set pieces, you always have an element of control over. Now, that season, they were the most prolific from set pieces. They scored 21 goals that year. And then what happens is it takes an absolute nosedive. When Philippe Clement comes in, he comes in and he wants more control over set pieces. So he's kind of taken that on himself. Now, the season afterwards, in 23-24, Rangers create a lot of chances from set pieces, but they only manage 9 goals, which, when you consider they've scored 17 and 21 in the previous 2 seasons, 9 is an absolute massive drop-off. And then last season, Rangers don't score a set piece goal until Boxing Day. Boxing Day. That is how long it took for Rangers to score a set piece goal in the league, and they only manage 8 all season. So there's a little bit of a correlation here between when there is a specialised set piece coach in situ, Rangers tend to be better at set pieces, which it seems obvious, but when you realise that they haven't had one for the past few years, it makes the point that they really should invest in one. Now, then it brings me on to why Scott Fry. Well, this is a guy who has really outperformed what he was expected to do at Lincoln. He came in initially as a goalkeeper coach before he was moved into that sort of set piece role. And Lincoln last season, I know it is League One in England, and I understand that people will be dubious about that level. But despite having nowhere near the highest budget, they led the way in set piece goals in League One last season. They were quite far out and away by anybody else. So obviously they were doing something a little bit different, and they were trying to lead the way in how they approach set pieces. There's interesting quotes from the Lincoln chief executive, Liam Scully. He is a man who he used this phrase quite a lot. If you read into what he said, that he's trying to squeeze the pips out of everything, trying to really, those marginal gains, those incremental gains that can really move you up the table. And he was just trying to squeeze the pips out of everything that Lincoln had, because, like you said, they don't have that big of a budget, but they could use things cleverly to try and work their way up the table. And I think one of the things that they used was actually very interestingly was AI. So they got AI involved when they were discussing their free kicks. This was something that Scott Fry was heavily involved in, and they used that to their advantage to make more interesting, more clever set pieces to try and get these slight marginal gains over the other teams. Now, I've got a couple of quotes here. This is one from Chief Executive Liam Scully. He says, "Our aim is to find the biggest points of differential and is knowing where we can shift the dial, make the biggest impact, get the biggest bang for our buck. Set pieces, for example, we set out to be the best in the division at it, and we managed to be the best in the country." So you really see that they put a lot of effort into doing that, and it really paid off and yielded results. Similarly, there's a quote here from the manager, Michael Skibala. This is an interesting thing where we brought in the AI company to help us, and that's got some really good results. But you can buy all the data, and it's all about what you do with it. The way we score from set pieces now, a lot of players wouldn't buy into it, but we work hard on coaching it. So it's an interesting sort of blending together of these new practices of using technology, of using AI with old school kind of coaching methods. So I think Scott Fry is adept to both, and I think he's maybe bringing in just a little bit of a new perspective into the Rangers coaching stuff.
Yep. When I first read the news on our website yesterday, I was thinking, Lincoln, really? And then the link with Thirlwell, I'm thinking this will go down well. But when the more you dig deep into the work he's done at Lincoln, you go, okay, the guy's got something about him. Now, I get comments coming in saying it's League One in England. Totally get that. But I think he may well be half decent at his job, and I think he deserves a chance to show what he's all about. I think you round off the set piece stats there for Rangers. I think, well, Johnny did ask him Philip Clement last season about whether he would consider bringing in a set piece coach, and he says no, and he does a lot himself. But it was clear that Rangers needed some sort of expertise in that field last season. Like you said, that first set piece goal on Boxing Day, almost fainted when I seen it at the time. So yeah, I think it's a big part of the game. It's small wins, and if you can harness that and bring a bit of variety and invention to your set pieces, then it keeps opposition defences guessing, and hopefully it will result in more goals for Rangers. A few points coming in. Just incidentally, I was thinking back, of course, I cover a lot of League One down south, and you will probably have remembered Lincoln played at Bolton at tail end of last season. They won 4-2, and they scored a free kick that went viral, with the boy just sort of caught the goalkeeper unawares and fired in from a sort of angle. It was more a goalkeeper positional error more than anything else. But yeah, it is something that they look to harness at Lincoln, and they're punching above their weight. They shouldn't be. Second, although it is very much a surprise affair in League One this season. A lot of clubs up at the top end that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be up there. Whether they can last the pace remains to be seen. I think if given some of the comments coming from down that neck of the woods, he will be a tough act to replace. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we can make that step up, and yeah, make sure that Rangers can improve in that area. Let's get to some of the points that Blue Yonder touches on this. Slightly uninspired as a set-piece coach with experience of League One, really our level. And there's a point here from Dave Master. He says, need more than Tav on these. Let's see some variety. That was one of the questions posed on the Q&A show on the Rangers Review Extra channel yesterday about the set-piece coach, and whoever was coming in has to look at who is taking the set pieces. One of the bugbears of many supporters, Blair, and also myself, is the fact that James Tavernier seems to take the vast majority of set pieces, whether it's free kicks, corners, throw-ins. Well, he does have a decent long throw that we've seen at various points this season, but it's all about speed for me, and making sure that there are other players that are able to take set pieces, because it seems to be not just this season, but years gone by, the Rangers have been very laborious and taking their time over every set piece, which allows the opposition to reset and get into shape to defend whatever is being thrown at them. Is that a fair point from Dave Master or Davester?
Yeah, just to pick up on that speed point, that was another one of those quotes coming out of Lincoln. They actually talked about when they analysed the data that a lot of people think about short corners as a bit of some people think of an annoyance, a bit of a waste. But the stat that they came out with, I've not got it in front of me here, so apologies if it's slightly off. But the stat they came out with is a short corner taken under 20 seconds is one of the most effective corners that you can take if you take it quickly and people aren't set and you can do something different with it. But the flip side of the coin, a short corner taken over 20 seconds suddenly becomes one of the worst corners you can take because then everybody's set and then you're not getting the same sort of impact from it. I understand the James Tavernier point. I do get that. I think that there's been so long where James Tavernier has perhaps seen it as his own personal responsibility to try and make something happen. And I think a lot of the way that he does it is by trying to swing balls out of the box, try to find perfect delivery, try to take control of all these situations, and trying to take on the responsibility of making something happen. I think if you put someone in there and you put a little bit more structure in place, and you start to vary it up, and I made this analogy on the Sunday podcast where I said that a lot of these set pieces can sometimes start to look like American football, can start to look a little bit like the NFL, where you've got a playbook and these set pieces become little worked on routines that you have in the back of your head. You go, okay, we're going to do routine number 6, and then that's a certain taker. Everybody stands in a certain position. Everybody makes a certain run. Because with guys like this, with these new models, the days of just whipping into the mixer seem to be sort of fading out, and now it's a lot more pre-planned in that regard. As far as I know, a lot of the comments are coming in that some people not happy with the sort of previous links to Kevin Thelwell having worked together at Wolves. I do take that point. I do understand that there is quite a lot of scar tissue already this season that when people see someone linked to Kevin Thelwell in a previous job, he then starts to be tarred with the same brush as a lot of the guys who have already come in, saying, oh, it's just someone that he's worked with before. He's just picking out people that he knows. And I do get that fair criticism. But what I would say is if you look at Scott Fry's credentials, if you look at him just from a purely objective point of view, he does seem to be a good performer at his level. He does seem to be very good at his job, and he seems to be coming here on merit rather than just coming because he's someone that Kevin Thelwell has worked with before. And the other thing we need to stress really clearly is that this is a guy who signed a new contract with Lincoln just in October of this year. So they wanted to keep a hold of them. They wanted to keep him there at the club. They obviously value what he does there. And Danny Rule was, as we're told, very much part of this process. He was very much integral to selecting the right guy, and he was consulted the whole way along that this was going to be his man. So Danny Rule has been on board with this selection, and I guess we just wait and see how it turns out. But I think on paper, I think it makes sense.
Yep. And as we touched on, folks, it was a story that we broke to you. And it's stories like that you can get with a subscription to the Rangers Review. And of course, we've got our Black Friday offer that we just launched yesterday, where you can get a full year's subscription for just 12 quid. Absolutely fantastic value. You won't regret it, folks. Loads of you incidentally signed up yesterday, so thank you to each and every one of you. And thank you to our existing subscribers for your continued support. The link, if you want to sign up, is in the description below this video. So do go and check it out, folks. So it's a cracking deal that we've got on offer at this moment in time. A few points I wanted to raise here just on, of course, Lincoln being in League One. Bluebells are Blue says, is opposition we face in the SPFL week in, week out any less in League One anyway? Old Firm aside. And Peter MacArthur says, Derek, you're on the ball with League One. Jamie O'Hara was saying Stockport would win our league, no problem. Yeah, I did see that, and I noticed it. No surprise to see that Sky took it down. It looked like a bit of a numpty, and Jamie O'Hara is a bit of a shock jock, and he just says things just to spark a reaction.
That's why you subscribe to the Rangers Review. No shock jock here. We come at you with proper journalism, proper opinions, nothing for the sake of it.
And not taking anything away from Stockport County, incidentally, I think they would be a third or fourth force in Scottish football if they were playing in Scotland. The Scottish Premiership is a very weird league, if you like. Rangers and Celtic, of course, well, historically, the two front runners, although Hearts are looking to stake their claim. But they are teams that you wouldn't look at a place you would say in probably the English Championship top end this season, at least. Well, maybe not Rangers. Some teams that would probably hold their own in League One. And then you've got some teams in Scotland that are probably no better than some teams in the National League, the Vauxhall Conference for old money, if you like. So, yeah, it's a bit of a mismatch, some of the teams in Scottish football, but certainly a lot of the teams in League One over the piece would not only give the teams in the Scottish Premiership a game, but I would say that most, just thinking about how many teams are in there, most have got bigger budgets for a start. They can attract better players. I think they would be a match for most of the teams in the Scottish Premiership, probably Celtic and Rangers aside. So I don't think Stockport County would go and win the title, incidentally, but certainly there's a host of teams in that division. Very strong. It's getting stronger year on year as well. That would be comfortably up there, challenging at the top end of the Scottish Premiership. So there you go. That's my tuppence worth on that argument. Right, let's move on, because one former Rangers employee is set for a return to the game, Blair. This caught me by surprise this morning. Norwich City are looking for a new manager after sacking Liam Manning after a poor run of form. And it's been reported by, I think, the Telegraph had it, that Norwich City are hopeful of appointing Philip Clement as their new head coach today. So he's been out of work since he was sacked as Rangers boss back in February. It seems like a lifetime ago now that he departed, with all that's gone on at Ibrox since then. John Dale Thomason and Gary O'Neill were interviewed for the role, but it looks like the Canaries are going to plump for Clement. It will be interesting to see how he gets on down there. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that struck me to begin with when I read that article. And he's only been he got sacked 9 months ago. It feels like years. Such is the nature of following Rangers. It just seems like so much has happened in the meantime since Philippe Clement departed Ibrox. It's I thought that was crazy. I actually think Philippe Clement will do well down there. I think he's a pretty astute manager. I think he had a lot on his plate. When he was up here at Rangers, he famously came across with a line where he said that he had to deal with things that no manager should ever arrive on his desk when he was up here. So I think that if he goes down there and if he just gets a fair crack of the whip, and he just gets to impart his sort of like football philosophy, his ideas onto that team, then I think he'll do pretty well. Yeah, big shoe there following up on that point. 9 months, I know, I'm absolutely with you. But yeah, the thing about Philippe Clement, and I remember I spoke to a French journalist at the time, when he was joining Rangers, a guy who had written for major publications and had covered a lot of French football, and he said the thing about Philippe Clement is that no matter where he goes, he always gets a tune out of the players to begin with. He always has that first sort of 9-10 months where he really can hit the ground running, and he knows how to change a team into a winning team. You've seen that with Rangers. Like, when in his first few months in the job, he won the League Cup. Obviously, that was kind of set up for him, but he still had to go and win it.
Yeah.
And then took Rangers into a title race when I don't think a lot of people really thought that Rangers would muster that. And obviously, a few poor results at the end of that season. Rangers really could have gone on. They had a puncher's chance of going winning that title at the end of that year, which was a really good achievement for where they were earlier in the campaign under Michael Beale. But I think after that, it kind of starts to tail off a little bit. But I think going down there with a good budget, I know people retrospectively have said this year, imagine Philippe Clement had the money to spend that Russell Martin had to spend. And yeah, we can look in hindsight, but things don't often pan out like that. But I think if he goes down there, gets a good bit of money behind him, Norwich are a big team. They always flip between the Championship and the Premiership, so there's always scope for them to go up, and I know that that's what they'll be expecting and pushing for anyway. And I think from a personal perspective, anytime I dealt with Philippe Clement, he was always a very personable guy, very nice guy, very intelligent guy, and I wish nothing but success for him. I really hope he goes down there, and I hope he does really well and takes Norwich to as high as he can in the Championship and maybe even the Premier League.
Yeah, if he does that, it'll be absolutely remarkable. I very much doubt they'll do that this season, but it's all about just improving the league position, I'd imagine. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Incidentally, another Rangers employee in Russell Martin, I've seen that he's been linked, well, he was linked to the Norwich job. He's been linked with a move back to Swansea as well, which will be intriguing to say the least. But yeah, good luck to Philippe Clement. Wonder if he'll try and nab some of his ex-players that he worked with at Rangers. I think that would help matters with regards to the January work that needs to be undertaken. If he can take maybe Kieran Dill back to Carrow Road, Rabi Matondo perhaps, that would help matters a great deal. But yeah, watch this space on that front. Love this. Park Reverie says, Derek, your mic looks like a blob on a watercolour painting. Gives me flashbacks to LSD days. So there you go. Yeah, is my microphone. You're not tripping, buddy, but there you go. You mentioned earlier on, of course, we are in the international break, Blair, and a Ranger was in action last night, Oliver Antman, and he scored, of course, for Finland and was playing on the left-hand side of their forward line. They've had a pretty disappointing campaign, I think, Finland, from memory. They did beat, I mean, it was Andorra last night, who, let's be honest, it's like, no disrespect to Andorra, but like going up against Stirling Albion. But you can only face the opposition that you're put up against. And yeah, he scored. So that may do his confidence a world of good for coming back for Saturday's game.
Yeah, I think that was also I don't even think it was a qualifier. I think it was an international friendly, that Andorra game. So there was obviously just a little bit of rotation, a little bit of moving the team about. But goals in international games can only do players good. I think that if he gets some minutes on the park and he starts to find his shooting boots again, no matter what the level, I think that can only help Rangers. And when he comes back, hopefully he can be a big piece of this puzzle for Danny Rule as Rangers go forward. Players that have been turning it on in international duty. Telo Asgard, he was in around the Norway squad as well, as was touched on earlier on. Qualifying for the World Cup, that's massive for Telo Asgard. And I think it's massive in two regards for Rangers. He is a player who hasn't really shown it yet in a Rangers jersey. He struggled to really make his mark. But again, having that confidence of potentially going to the World Cup, knowing that your World Cup place is up for grabs, knowing that you have to perform at club level, so you do make that World Cup squad, can always be a little bit of a driving factor in the back of players' heads. And also from a Rangers perspective, it's always good to have your players on show on the international stage, on a World Cup stage, because if you get a player who goes and performs well at a World Cup, all of a sudden he's in the shop window, and there's a lot of teams all around the world taking a look at him, and then all of a sudden he could be braced for a hefty bid for a player if he performs well at the World Cup. So I think it's always good to have players there that are showcasing themselves on the world stage and are put themselves in the eyes of any potential suitors as well. Nico Raskin, he played 89 minutes against Kazakhstan, I believe it was. They drew one each with Kazakhstan. Nico Raskin is obviously now becoming a bit of a regular in that Belgium side. He has carved out a bit of a niche role for himself, that he is the destroyer, the battler in that middle of the park. So he seems to be really a regular there now. And he's another one that, depending on how his contract situation pans out, he goes to the World Cup, plays well. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the shop window for potential big money move as well.
Yeah, here's another topic of discussion on the Q&A yesterday. I think Rangers, I said it in the summer, that I would feel comfortable if he ran down his contract to the summer, has a good World Cup with Belgium, and then Rangers would have to sell him then if he's not signing a new deal. I do not want a repeat scenario as he had over at Standard at Liège, that Rangers were able to bring him in a cut price deal because they were unwilling to let him go for nothing. So they just sold him to Rangers for just over £1 million at the time. You don't want that happening. He is an asset, one of very few assets that Rangers have. So hopefully that is a situation that can be resolved in January. A couple of points before we wrap things up for today. DB Cooper says Antman played left wing back. Could he do it for us? I'd be surprised if I seen that. Incidentally, Jaden McGoldman, of course, is there. I would like Rangers to bring another left wing back in January. Would you be surprised to see Oliver Antman deployed in that sort of role at some point, Blair?
I'd probably say yes. I know that Derek Cornelius was brought in to be the sort of backup left back to Jaden McGoma, but that's maybe changed a little bit because Danny Rowell's now deploying this back three. So that was obviously under a different management. So Danny Rowell might have a look at Oliver Antman as a wing back. I certainly think he would benefit from getting on the touchline, getting to the byline, because, like I've said so many times on this podcast, that Oliver Antman made his name last year, and he made his bread by putting in crosses. That's what he was good at. That was really how Go Ahead Eagles used him. That's how that is his skill set. And Rangers have bought a winger to put in crosses and not used them like that at all. So I think that if Daniel's going to get the best out of him, he probably will put him in, or to try and put him in a position like that. But in this sort of system that it is now, again, me and Josh touched about this on the tactics pod in the studio a few weeks ago. The sort of system that Danny Rowell has adopted when he's playing this three with two wing backs. When one goes, the other drops in and becomes a sort of more defensive fullback, and then when he goes, the other one drops in to become a sort of defensive fullback. So I think Oliver Antman's defensive capabilities might make that a little bit difficult. Don't get me wrong, I don't not seen him too much as a defender. I don't think it's a role that he's played particularly often. I think he's more of an attacking old school winger. But I definitely like to see him be given more of a chance. I still hold out a lot of hope that Oliver Antman will become a good player for Rangers. I don't want to write him off. I think he's got a lot of skills that just aren't being utilised quite yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Right, folks, that will do us there. A big thank you to you all for tuning in to the show. It's much appreciated. And a reminder, of course, if you want to take up that brilliant offer, we've got the Black Friday deal for a year's subscription to the website, just 12 quid. Click the link below this video or head on over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up. Thank you to Blair, as ever. And tomorrow morning, I'll be on with Stevie. 9:30 as always. We hope you can join us for that. Until then, enjoy your Tuesday. Bye for now.